So now they have 4 cases, 3 in federal court. And yeah, he wasn't killed. 7 years in jail. I just checked my pocket before I left the office in case. You know, one of the very expensive business. Yeah. My assistant at the last one. Yeah.
John, how are you?
I see it. I see it.
I'm only here in
You guys were afraid not to see me.
How you doing? Let's see you, John.
How you doing? Yes. I don't see you much anymore. No, you know what it was?
I got to shut up, sit down, treatment from the too.
So then we have science seating up front.
I know what you're going about.
Yeah, here's Mitch, and then we have Donnie right here. Yeah. We got it all lined up. The names are on it.
We have 2 children.
No, I mean, it's gonna be going in order. I didn't really move order. You are. So yeah, it's all in order.
Why was one parents coming here? Yeah, well, she kind of got 4 years. Good to see you.
So now I.
It's not very quick. Hey, guys. I brought a coat because it said it was gonna rain. I'm prepared.
I found out from my spirit.
But still would say no. And then, because of the pandemic, I still got that back. My wife was very faithful. So, but we have two our children, one grandson. And, oh, you betcha, and we have for the last 10 years, grandsons are getting, so we go down for a few days, and we go 2 weeks long. Then we come back and spend a few days. Give it 4 hours. This year we get 3 days for January. Mostly mountain. So we have very nice.
Yeah.
The order might have been better.
Although I can. This is coming here. I just, some of you. I'm out here 67. Yeah, right. He's, he can write. Yes. We're gonna hear it. It's something that is. 2 years ago. And he said he made it. And he's like, he's acting on the sex accounts of Canada's law. Here's the growers, and he does applications. He doesn't do it now. And most of these are social responsibility. Noise, whatever. So far, he was someday, we have this thing to grow. And he loves it. And he found something he enjoyed. So, I have 4 kids, and 2 are here. Say, Keith, the little bit of Peoria. My oldest daughter started early.
Give me.
This is all the pictures I
Well, if you got to the one I will sign. I staple mine, I staple mine.
Who's fishing? I know where it's fishing.
Here's 2.
Part-time.
Okay, let me. Want to present?
Oh, yeah.
I got the other one here.
Oh, okay.
Got a loose one here. Thank you for doing this. It's not as much fun as yeah.
This is fine.
Yeah, they came over.
Sorry about That's fine. Do you have one without?
Yeah.
I will sign it. Okay? This brings back losing all of my contemporaries, all these people that I tried cases with and against. But my favorite story with TJ is he and I first met in the fall of 1966. And maybe they did the same thing when we were starting out. Letting you be a guardian ad litem in Judge Ivan's adoption. And so for asking you stock asking a few stock questions, you got $25. And so the key was where are these stock questions? So that you're sure to answer, ask the right one, because you sure as hell don't know. So TJ and I were sitting in the room waiting to be called, and I had a copy of the question, and he didn't. So after I did my bit, I gave him the questions for which he was appreciated. I assume he had him playing when he was out. How long has he been gone? October. No, I'm sorry, I mean from the practice field. He was one of the first to retire. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Thank you for doing that. I'm sure that Ray would appreciate it. I was talking to my wife last night when we were having a drink, and we were remembering Ray at the bar. We got together all the time.
Well, I know both of the sons are.
One of them, Jeff, you're Scott.
He's a lawyer. If I get mine, I need
No, it is, if you want to sign, I'll sign down, I'll sign for you. I'm sure your dad will appreciate it. Very nice. Your children. Do I have the? Okay. You've got a copy.
And here's two signatures.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. Do you remember?
I do remember that case again. In the early 80s. Third place in four. And he was
Yes, Chris was a good guy and very bright. Died way too soon.
Which county do I give to her? Which county do I give to you?
Doesn't make any difference. Okay, this is the third page. The fourth page, the last page. Okay. Thank you, Jim. What are you doing now?
Just retired and travel.
Well, hey, you know.
Prior to the pandemic, I traveled a lot, but I have been traveling a lot the last 5 months. Double booster. So, yeah.
Anything that you, any questions?
I made a bucket trip. Okay. You get a bike and stuff.
Yeah. Yes, that, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, and did Normandy also. And they had lunch at the country club. The Omaha Beach. But it really is, the Omaha Beach. But I've always made the joke that on the D-Day, they got up but the cemetery or
So very impressive. Just, we're going on record. I'm seeing all the chairs.
that would be Give me a second. I want to touch base with Scott. But as late as 11 o'clock this morning, I was putting these things together. And what we've got it done. We will not fail, Steve.
All right. So Dave, you give me the thumbs up. You're good.
I will.
Stephanie Bittner.
All rise. The 10th Judicial Circuit Court of Illinois is now in session. Chief Judge Catherine Gorman presiding.
All right, everybody take a seat. Oh, it is so great to see everybody here today. Welcome, family, friends, and special guests. Retired judges Brandt, Eagleton, and Nemenoff. And for those of you with active dockets, thank you for taking time to be here today. We're here for the 111th memorial service in Peoria County. The records date back to 1911, and it was held annually until 2020, and then we all know what happened. And here we are today in 2022. I want to thank Dave Miller, who's been an integral part of this tradition for years, and Stephanie Bittner and Stephanie Dwyer, and the rest of court administration for assisting in organizing this event. As my dad would say, over the past year, we've lost some of nature's noblemen, and today is a day we celebrate their legacy and reflect on how fortunate we are to practice law here in the 10th Judicial Circuit. And with that, I'll turn the program over to Dave Miller.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, members of the judiciary, members of the Peoria County Bar Association, and friends and families of those whom we honor here today. The 17th century English poet John Donne described the passage of generations best when he said, "Send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." I suggest that each of you take a moment to look at the program you receive. It lists each of the members of our association who have been remembered in this service over the years. As you can see, this is the 111th continuous memorial service presented by the Peoria County Bar Association, a tradition of which we are rightfully proud. And you will notice that I'm not skipping the COVID period because we made up for it last year. This is a good thing we do today. In paying tribute to our departed friends and colleagues, we reflect not only upon their lives and accomplishments, but also upon the gifts and good fortune which enabled us to contribute to the rule of law and to our community. The departed are the blocks upon which we build. It is our responsibility to build the next level. A memorial will be given orally today and in written form will be spread upon the records of the Peoria County Bar Association. Today, we honor Franklin L. Renner, Gary L. Clark, W. Thomas Johnston, Raymond C. Rose, Harry M. Williams, James G. Hatcher, Frederick D. Johnson, Christopher F. Cassidy, and Sandra M. Trakoff. The names are given in the order in which they departed, not by any other process of selection. Following formal presentation of the memorials, the floor will be open to remembrances and reminiscences of those whom we honor by persons who are in attendance. The first memorial is presented for Frank Renner by Bob Coletta.
May it please the court. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful to the Peoria County Bar Association and to David, Chairman of the Memorial Committee, for the privilege and honor of presenting this memorial resolution in honor and recognition of my friend and colleague, Franklin L. Renner. The following memorial was authored by Frank's son, Brock Renner, who's in attendance with other family members here today. My name is Brock Renner, and I'm the second child of Franklin Lee Renner. I'd like to start by thanking the Peoria County Bar Association for giving our family the opportunity to speak about our father. He passed away on Friday, August 6, 2021, after a short and fierce battle with cancer. Having watched my father bravely, without complaint, and then watched him pass quickly from treatment complications, I had neither the energy nor the perspective to fully eulogize him during his funeral. I am deeply grateful to the Bar Association for giving me this chance to talk about my father and the extraordinary way he lived his life. The story of Frank Renner began long before his birth on May 18, 1945. My father and his children are the progeny of non-English speaking Slavic immigrants who toiled in the coal mines of Southern Illinois for several generations before him. As my father would often say, our ancestors would have marched into coal mines wearing little more than recycled potato sacks in the hopes of providing for their families. My father's parents, Peggy and Tony Renner, met, wed, and then moved to North Bartonville, Illinois, to raise their three children, Jolene, Frank, and Jean. My grandfather, Tony, was a kind gentleman who himself toiled hot furnaces of Keystone Steel and Wire for over 35 years. My father was most like his mother, Peggy. She had piercing blue eyes and was an amazing cook. She was also just as likely to laugh at your jokes as she was to give you 6 reasons why what you just said is totally wrong. My dad was the middle child, but from a very early age, he was also a family leader. Frank had a deep ambition to take the next step in the socioeconomic ladder and reward his parents and grandparents for their hard work and putting him in a position to succeed. My first exposure to my dad's accomplishments was when I visited Limestone High School during one of my basketball games. Of course, I had heard from my grandparents the lore of my father's high school career, but I hadn't understood its full scope until that day. Even 30 years after he walked those halls, my father's picture adorned trophy case after trophy case. He was in the top 10 in his class, quarterback on the football team, point guard on the basketball team, class president, and the school star pitcher. When we even saw a plaque commemorating my dad incredibly losing a no-hitter 1-0 when a runner scored on an error. As was true about most of his accomplishments, my wonderment at all of this was met by a simple shrug from my father. Frank's success continued on at the University of Iowa. He was a 4-year letter winner as a left-handed pitcher on the baseball team. While most college pitchers approached the game with pure power, Frank befuddled batters with an array of off-speed and breaking pitches that made him a 3-year starter. Incredibly, at 5'10" and 160 pounds, Frank was also a point guard on the Iowa freshman basketball team. With such a resume, most people would rely on their athletic achievements. But my father was a more serious student than athlete. He graduated from Iowa Phi Beta Kappa with triple majors of political science, psychology, and sociology. In what can only be described as an extremely limited free time, my father also earned extra money serving meals in the Iowa dorm cafeteria. Following graduation, my father began his first year of law school at the University of Illinois. Most people don't know that my father struggled with an illness during his law school career that would have put most people on the bench. Instead, not only did he shine in the classroom, but my father was also chosen as a legislative assistant to the Illinois Constitutional Convention in 1970. During the convention, my dad noticed a pretty young lady giving tours in Illinois' old state capital. Her name was Mary Levis, and she became my mother. At the time, my mother had also struck the fancy of another rising legal star, the future mayor of Chicago, Richard M. Daley. My mother had gone several dates with the young Daley, and things were going well. Undeterred, my father charmed his way into my mother's heart, asking on 4 separate occasions if she would resist the allure of the Chicago machine and give him a chance at a date. On the 4th try, she finally said yes. I remain quite frustrated with my mother for this decision and often remind her that I could have been president by now. Anyway, but I'm sure proud of my dad and for his confidence and persistence. As the saying goes, never underestimate a man who seems to be overestimating himself. During law school, my father also spent time as a summer associate with the large Chicago law firm of Wilson and McElvain. But ultimately, he turned down an offer, hoping instead to return to Peoria and his family and the community he loved. My father graduated law school in 1971. His first position as an attorney was with the firm of Leiter, Frazier, Newland, Parkhurst, and McCord. No doubt many of you know that firm. My dad started doing general practitioner work, but developed quickly into a sharp and well-regulated, well-regarded litigator. My mother recalls he made partner in record time, which allowed him to work on the firm's largest clients. The firm also fostered my dad's political career. In 1973, Frank ran for the first time for Peoria City Council. He won and quickly developed a reputation as a bright public servant who suffered no fools. Ambivalent about running again in 1975, my dad pondered his reelection past the filing deadline for candidacy. But in what you may be noticing as a theme here, Frank wasn't to be denied. He thereafter launched a successful write-in campaign and eventually won a second term. Another highlight of my dad's political life was his support and campaign leadership for Mayor Jim Maloof. I remember vividly Mr. Maloof's first election victory. My father had been away for the entire day and evening. My sister and I eagerly watched the returns on TV. When it was clear Mr. Maloof would win or would be successful for the first time, my sister and I excitedly decorated the entire house with streamers, signs, balloons, and affection. When my father came home, we met him at the door and hugged him with excitement and joy. It was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. During his time on the city council, Frank became a strong supporter of the Civic Center. While many at the time argued for a limited investment in such a facility, my father and others convinced the majority of civic leaders to invest in a multi-purpose facility that would include an arena, exhibition hall, and grand theater. As you all know, now that vision manifested into the Peoria Civic Center we know today. Following his passing, one of the comments I heard with most appreciation was that my dad's vision for the Peoria Civic Center separated Peoria from many other Midwestern towns seeking to attract art, culture, and business convention. While his civic contributions left an indelible mark on his community, my dad's professional heart and soul remained invested in his law practice, and more so in his clients. I was struck by the way he discussed clients' experiences and his level of loyalty and compassion for their situation. I never heard my dad discuss money or settlements. What I heard my dad discuss instead was the difficulties his clients experienced and his hope to get them the resources they needed to improve their lives. One particular case that stands out to me was my father's advocacy for a Vietnam veteran who was being harassed at his job. The case hit a nerve with my dad because his client was his same age and had a traumatic experience during the war. The client's primary responsibility was to collect fallen soldiers from the battlefields and swamps. Doing so left him with severe PTSD and depression. My dad knew he had been very lucky to escape such experiences due to a chance meeting with a National Guard recruiter in his hometown. I know that my dad carried guilt about that. During the case and then trial, all my dad could think about was helping this man get the help he needed to address the pain he had felt first during the war and then at work. The case was successfully resolved, and my father remained a friend and advocate for that client for the rest of the client's life. The last area I would like to relate is an uncomfortable one. I wanted to honor my father in the way, not only that he lived, but also in the way he died. What I want to say about this is how incredibly brave he was during the period of his illness. My father died from complications of esophageal cancer. It's a terrible disease. It not only corrodes the body at a dizzying pace, but it also profoundly affects the quality of life for those afflicted. For many reasons, it is difficult to describe how much my dad suffered, but it is even harder to describe the quiet courage which with my father went about so many difficult days. Despite the daily regime of grueling treatments and challenges to basic nutrition, I would often get a, quote, "doing great," text from him on the many times I checked in. He'd often start sentences with, quote, "when I beat this," moving on to his excitement about future sporting events or the next time he got to see my son. For all his professional and personal compliments, I made me most proud of him, how he handled his illness. I wanted to share this because I'm confident you're hearing this for the first time. The vast majority of his friends and family were unaware of how hard his last months and days were. He did this as he had done so many things in life, with a sense of selflessness and thorough and tremendous personal strength. I am honored and inspired seeing my father reach the end of his life with so much dignity and strength. What I want to convey instead is that he left a deep impression upon me. For me, my father is the archetype of work ethic, compassion, intelligence, and above all, persistence. Thank you again to the Bar Association for this chance to share my most cherished memories and those of my family of our father. And thank you all for listening. Respectfully, Brock, Renner, and family. Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deepest sympathy and sorrow in the passing of our colleague and friend, Franklin L. Renner, as well as our appreciation for his life and his dedication to the law and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial to Brock Renner, the son of Franklin L. Renner. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. The next memorial is for Gary L. Clark, and it will be presented by Tom Leiter.
I'm pleased to present the memorial resolution for Gary L. Clark. I'm standing in today for Fred Nessler, who was not able to be here today due to other conflicts. And with the assistance of Dave Miller, I'm pleased to present this memorial. To the family and friends of Gary L. Clark, members of the judiciary, Peoria County Bar Association, and guests. The Peoria County Bar Association and our profession have lost a good and dedicated member when Gary Clark died on September 27, 2021. For over 40 years, Gary was a member of the PCBA while he was associated in the trial practice with Fred Allen, and thereafter with Fred Nessler in Springfield, Illinois. I'll present Fred's additional remarks upon the conclusion of this portion of the memorial. Gary was born in Peoria on August 4, 1938, the son of Walter and Jetta Wainscott Clark. He grew up in Peoria and married Elaine Damden on August 4, 1962 at St. Bernard's Church. She was the love of Gary's life and survives, together with her three sons, Kevin Clark of St. Charles, Illinois, Brian Clark of Birmingham, Alabama, and Mark Clark of Madison, Wisconsin. Gary was the proud grandfather of Jackson Clark, Ella Clark, Kate Clark, and Lauren Clark. Growing up in Peoria, Gary attended St. Boniface, where he was active in the band, playing the trumpet. He attended Spalding Institute, which at that time was affiliated with the girls' school across the street, the Academy of Our Lady. His future wife, Elaine, was a student at the Academy, and their lifelong love affair began in high school. Upon completing Spalding, Gary attended St. Ambrose College. Thereafter, he attended the University of Illinois Law School, from which he graduated in 1963. Thereafter, he joined the Army National Guard, where he served for 6 years. Following law school, Gary remained in Peoria, associated with Fred Allen, where he was a civil trial lawyer on the plaintiff's side. Gary tried many cases in this courthouse, where he appeared before most of the judges, whose photographs are featured in the hallway adjacent to the large courtroom in which we're spending this afternoon, which were then known as Courtroom A, Courtroom B, and Courtroom C. In addition to excellent trial skills, Gary was known as a legal scholar. He handled numerous appeals for Fred's office, as well as serving on the board of the Illinois Trial Lawyers Association. In Peoria, he was an early member of the Lincoln Inns of Court, where he frequently participated in continuing legal education programs, both procedural and substantive. Apart from the law, Gary was a lifelong Cubs fan and golfer. On weekends, he was a regular member of a Saturday morning league, where he was a regular with his golfing buddies. In addition to his talents on the course, Gary and Elaine were accomplished chefs. They studied culinary enrichment at La Varenne in France and were particularly zealots in their preparation of sauces to complement their cuisine. Gary and Elaine enjoyed travel and had a passion for the theater. Little known to those other than the audience and his fellow thespians, Gary was active in local theater, both on the stage, acting and singing, and behind the scenes, directing numerous productions in the area. Following retirement, he was an instructor with the Ollie program at Bradley in the areas of travel and appropriate to Peoria, the history of vaudeville theater. Gary was proud of his profession and gave back to this association at every opportunity. He will be missed. Following the retirement of Fred Allen, Gary became a partner with Fred Nessler in Springfield. Fred regrets that he cannot be here today, but prepared the following remarks, which I present on his behalf. Gary Clark was Fred Allen's associate for many years. I had worked with Fred and Gary on a number of significant injury and medical malpractice cases at the beginning of my career. Fred Allen and Gary Clark were at the very top tier of plaintiffs' trial lawyers in Central Illinois. I was extremely fortunate to both know and learn from Fred and Gary. We had a very good relationship and achieved significant results, largely due to Gary's brilliant legal mind. Gary was extraordinary in both research and theory development. When Fred Allen decided to retire and spend part of the year in Palm Springs, he called me and asked the following question. I'm going to retire. Would you be willing to take Gary and Arlene, his paralegal, into your firm? Fred said that he would like to maintain his office in Peoria and that we could assume and use that space. I was extremely flattered. I was also very excited to be working with Gary Clark. Fred Allen always said that Gary will keep you out of trouble. That was very true. Gary had a penchant for in-depth research and brilliant analysis. He would always roundtable major cases. Gary could not only analyze the facts, but develop unique but solid theories of liability. He was truly one of the best legal minds I have ever encountered. I immediately made Gary a partner, and our firm then became known as Nessler and Clark. In those days, we relied on referrals from other lawyers, and Gary's reputation attracted many new clients. I vividly remember listening to Gary explain and articulately argue the fundamentals and elements of the master-servant principle in a complicated tort case. His explanation to the court was not only extraordinarily persuasive, but a textbook educational experience in my legal career. That argument and presentation resulted in a significant award for the clients Gary was representing. However, Gary Clark was more than a brilliant lawyer. Those who were close to him also knew that he was an accomplished chef. Gary loved French cooking. He not only had a passion for his avocation, but was likewise extremely accomplished in the field. He loved learning and spent time in France studying how to advance his skills in the area of French cuisine. It was a privilege to dine at Gary's house and experience his cooking art. He was also a connoisseur of fine French wines that were compatible with the particular dish he was preparing. Gary was diligent about preparing for his life after the law. When Gary announced that he planned to retire, I was saddened for the loss to our firm, but happy that Gary could pursue his other great passion. In Gary's honor, we have always maintained his name, Gary L. Clark, retired. He was not only admired for his legal ability, but more importantly, admired as a close and trusted friend. Gary L. Clark was a great lawyer, a great friend, and a wonderful human being. He is greatly missed by his profession, his colleagues, and his friends. Your Honor, I move that this memorial be made a part of and spread upon the records of the Peoria County Bar Association. Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deepest sympathy and sorrow on the passing of Gary L. Clark, as well as his appreciation for his life, his dedication to the law, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial resolution to his wife Elaine and to his sons Kevin, Brian, and Mark. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022.
Thank you, Tom. The next memorial will be for Tom Johnston, and it'll be presented by Nick Henderson.
Please, the court. To the family and friends of W. Thomas Johnston, members of the Judiciary, Peoria County Bar Association, and guests. Thank the Peoria County Bar Association and its Memorial Committee for the honor of presenting this memorial resolution in recognition of W. Thomas Johnston. Tom, or TJ as he was known by all, was born and grew up on the south side of Chicago. His parents were Lena and Wesley Johnston. Tom was part of an extended Italian family. His mother was an Italian immigrant, and the Italian heritage prevailed with large and boisterous celebrations and family gatherings. He had a younger sister, Patty, who preceded him in death. Tom attended Rich High School South and was an excellent and well-recognized lineman on the football team. His football prowess was such that he was offered and accepted a scholarship to play at Eastern Illinois University. He met Sue Ellen Lloyd when both were students at Eastern, and they married upon graduation. Tom then attended the University of Illinois Law School, where he graduated with a Juris Doctor degree. He and Sue moved to Peoria, where he joined the law firm of McConnell Kennedy, McConnell and Morris. When I joined the firm in 1969, Tom was a senior associate. Tom took me under his wing, helping me prepare and try my first jury trial. And we became lifelong friends. I think Tom was happy that I joined the firm so that someone else who used an initial as a first name, could be on the letterhead. Shortly thereafter, Tom became a partner with the firm and soon gained the reputation as an excellent litigator. He continued to monitor young associates throughout his entire career, some of whom are here in the audience today and will back me up on that statement. Tom and Sue had 2 children, Ann and Matt, who both reside in the central Illinois area. Ann resides in Peoria and Matt is a physician in Springfield. Each have 3 children. His grandchildren were the love of his life. TJ, Tommy, Sabrina, Gabrielle, Jack, and Meg. He loved playing games with them and enjoyed teaching them how to cheat at card games. He mentored them on their golf games and teased them relentlessly. They cherished the loud laugh and the big hugs. Tom's loud, some would say bellowing, laugh and outgoing personality were difficult to resist. He could tell a joke with the best of them and often told it more than once. He had the ability to be himself in front of a jury, a talent that does not come easily. And juries appreciated and were drawn to that. His record with jury trials was exemplary. Tom was subjected to and admirably handled ribbing about the toupee he wore for several years. Once on a bar association trip to Spain, he was in a swimming pool without his rug. He came out of the water in front of a very young Kevin Sullivan, who was traveling with his parents, and convinced Kevin that the water had caused him to lose his hair. People liked Tom and were drawn to him. He took the representation of his clients very seriously, and his clients were loyal to him and appreciated his work on their behalf. Tom approached trials with a down-to-earth attitude. Juries understood it. TJ spent his entire career with the same firm. In time, the firm became known as McConnell, Kennedy, Quinn and Johnston, then Quinn, Johnston, Henderson, and Pretorius, then Quinn, Johnston, Henderson, Pretorius, and Cerullo, and now Quinn, Johnston. Tom retired just before his 60th birthday. He later married Charlotte, and they lived, interestingly, in Charlotte, North Carolina, enjoying the Southern lifestyle and playing a lot of golf. Charlotte preceded Tom in death by about 2 years. Tom passed away at Charlotte on October 25th, 2021, and will be remembered as a wonderful partner, father, grandfather, mentor, and friend. Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deepest sympathy and sorrow on the passing of our colleague and friend, W. Thomas Johnston, as well as our appreciation for his life, his dedication to the law, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of the memorial resolution to Ann Ray and Dr. Matthew Johnston, the children of W. Thomas Johnston. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. I want to remind everyone that after the presentation of the last of the scheduled memorials, the floor will be open for those of us to remember our departed colleagues. The next memorial will be for Ray Rose, and it'll be presented by Don Jackson.
To the family and friends of Raymond C. Rose, members of the Judiciary, Peoria County Bar Association, and guests, I am grateful to the Peoria County Bar Association and to David Mueller, Chairman of the Memorial Committee, for the privilege and honor of presenting this memorial resolution in honor and recognition of Raymond C. Rose. Ray was born in the city of Peoria on January 21st, 1941. He attended grade school and high school in District 150, graduating from Woodruff High School. He was the quarterback of the successful Woodruff High School football team. And after graduation, he married his high school sweetheart, Barbara Levin, in 1963. Ray graduated from Wabash College and University of Denver Law School. Ray and Barbara had two sons, Stephen Scott Rose, now 55, and living in St. Louis, and Jeffrey Charles Rose, now 53, and living in Indianapolis, Indiana. Scott has one son and is the director of sales for a transportation company called Interrose. Jeff is married, has a son, Alex, and he is Director of Corporate Accounts for IDEX Laboratories. After law school, Ray returned to the city of Peoria, and for a short period of time, I'm told he practiced law with the firm of Heil, Royster, Belker, and Allen. Thereafter, he founded his own law firm, practicing in the personal injury field. Ray had a successful and financially rewarding career, and he was known to be a very skilled practitioner in his chosen field. I became friends with Ray when I was an associate in the law firm of Hafley and Dade, located on the 8th floor of the First National Bank building. At that time, Ray was located in the same building, and we became friends. During the years 84 and 85, I shared office space with Ray in the First National Bank building along with my friend Jim Carter. The three of us spent a great deal of time discussing matters unrelated to the law and then celebrating our daily success at Sully's Pub on Adams Street. Ray knew the personal injury business and the rules of evidence associated therewith, and he was a skilled litigator so that he had to spend less time sweating over the little details in his practice than Mr. Carter and I did in ours. Ray became a good friend of our family, and being a single man, he found it very convenient to join us at the dinner table practically every night. At the time I began sharing office with Ray in '84, I was part of a large contingency of African-American golfers who regularly traveled to Biloxi, Mississippi in February to play golf. Ray was also a golfer, and when he learned of the trip, he decided to join us. At the time, one of his high school classmates and the halfback on the team, Ray quarterback, James Pearson, was part of the group, and it didn't take very long for Ray to strike up friendships with the other golfers in the group as well. Ray was a member of the Peoria Country Club, and when he and Barbara divorced, he became sole owner of the membership. Part of the joy of his day was antagonizing her by requiring her two young sons, Jeff and Scott, to sign for her amenities at the club. If I recall, Tom Johnson lived behind the 10th green at Peoria Country Club, and whenever we played that hole, there was always a reunion between TJ and Ray in his backyard. I think intentionally to irritate the forces behind us. Eventually, I formed my own firm, and I pretty much lost track of Ray for some time. I knew that he began to practice with one of the other firms in the area for a short period of time, and then left to move to Dunedin, Florida, outside of Tampa, where he shared quarters with a close friend, Mary Lou Bickelson. It was there that Ray had an accident while out walking and suffered a serious head injury, from which led to his death on October 28, 2021. Ray will be remembered for many things, primarily his intellect, his sense of humor, and his devotion to his sons, Jeff and Scott.
He will be deeply missed by the many of those whose lives he touched. Personally, in addition to the many good times we had together, I will remember the fact that he once owned a sports car, a DeLorean, with the gull-like wings. In other words, the doors didn't open out, they opened up. The boys in my neighborhood thought that was the coolest thing in the world, and I might add some of our neighbors felt as well. In the words of Ray's son, Jeff, he was a charmer to the end. Literally on his deathbed in hospice, he had the nurses swooning over him, making comments about his looks and his smile. He always had a way about him with others, which likely made him very effective as an advocate. He was a great friend, and I will miss him. Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association expresses our deepest sympathy and sorrow on the passing of our colleague and friend, Raymond C. Rose, as well as our appreciation for his life, his dedication to the law, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial resolution to his sons, Jeff and Scott Rose. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. The memorial for Harry Williams will be presented by Jim Rochford, who is now coming forward.
Thank the court and Chairman Miller for this opportunity to recognize my great friend, Harry Williams. It's been said that the world's divided into three kinds of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. And Harry Williams was truly a person who made things happen. Three things were very important to Harry Williams throughout his life. One was his relationship with God and his faith. Secondly was his lovely wife, Georgette, and his family. And thirdly was his practice in taking care of his clients. I'll start first with Harry's commitment to God and his faith. Harry attended Mass every day, and oftentimes I would see him going to Mass at noontime at Sacred Heart. And if for some reason he had something that would prevent him from doing that, he made sure that he got to Mass at another time. And it's because that was so important to Harry that he knew that everything started with his God and his faith. And he truly believed that, and he lived that throughout his entire life. And in fact, his parents went to Mass every day as well. And so they set the example for Harry, and Harry has set that example for his children that also are very devout in their faith in the Catholic Church. Harry also, with his lovely wife, Georgette, taught young couples how to raise children and have faith be a part of their relationship and also in raising a family. And he impacted many, many lives with Georgette in doing that and spreading his faith with others and young couples to make them spread that throughout their families. Harry was also very committed in his faith to believing that the sanctity of human life. And so on a pro bono basis, Harry represented on many, many cases of preventing lawsuits from taking away the right of those to protest or do anything that they believed was important to emphasize the sanctity of human life. And that was just something that was a part of Harry Williams and a part of his personality and his demeanor. Now, Harry was also very committed to his lovely wife, Georgette, and Georgette actually homeschooled their children. Harry was number 6 out of 17 children in his family,
a good Catholic family, without a doubt. And he had 7 children, with his oldest being born while I was in law school, and that was his only son. And his family is an unbelievable family. Georgette homeschooled the kids, every one of them, all the way through school. And Harry, at the same time, provided input into their education as well. And frankly, I know that Harry was one that had a great sense of humor, but at the same time, he would always make sure that his children understood and got his twist on their education as well. And so really, he and Georgette worked together as a team to educate and truly raise their children, both in their education academically and in the education of life. And that's what Harry Williams was all about. He was about God and he was about his family. But Harry Williams was also very committed to his practice and in doing a service to his clients. And so Harry would oftentimes, as a young lawyer, if he heard of a experienced lawyer that was putting on a trial, he would come in and just watch in court, and particularly in closing arguments. And when I talked to him about that, he said that the main reason that he did that is that he wanted to do as good a job as possible when he had the opportunity to put on trials. And by seeing the best of the best, that would help him to be a better lawyer. Now, Ray Rose, who was just recognized by Don Jackson, was kind of a mentor to Harry. And in fact, when Harry graduated from law school and moved back to Peoria, he really set up his own practice. We went around to law offices, and the person he really matched up with as a mentor was Ray Rose. And he said to Ray Rose, "Hey, I just want to learn from you, and I want to learn how to be a good lawyer. So I'll work for free for you and just do whatever it is that you think that I need to learn to be the best lawyer I can be." And Ray Rose did let Harry work with him. He didn't let him work for free. He did pay him. And they had a long-term relationship. And the first time that I met Harry was actually when he was with Ray Rose, and they were doing a case together. And so Harry was someone that wanted to learn from others, and he wanted to make himself the best lawyer he could possibly be. And that's the way he handled his practice. And it wasn't uncommon for Harry, if he had a client that he represented that did not have the money to pay his bill, he would just write off the bill. And he did that very often. And he did it because he believed that as lawyers that we had an obligation to give back to others. And he would do that if he had someone that he believed in their case, he believed in what they wanted to proceed, but they couldn't afford to pay his bill. And Harry was just that kind of a person in his entire life. I know that I had a heart attack in October of last year and had triple heart bypass surgery. And the day after my surgery, coming walking into my intensive care room, like he owned the hospital, was Harry Williams. And he spent about 3 hours with me in my room. And he explained to me that his lovely wife, Georgette, had the same type of procedure at the Mayo Clinic up in Minnesota. And he wanted to assure me that Georgette had gotten through it and that I would be able to get through it as well. And unfortunately, that was the last time that I ever saw Harry Williams, because by the time I got out and with my recovery, Harry ended up going into the hospital at the beginning of December and passed away in the hospital on December 29th. And the thing is that I know that Harry Williams, his legacy is his family. And his family is what he was most concerned about. And he showed the love and care of being a good parent. He has 27 grandchildren, and I know he knew all of their birthdays. He knew how to play with all of them and thoroughly enjoyed that. And really, Harry Williams was nothing but a big kid, but he had a heart that was as big a heart of anyone I've ever met, and was nothing but a tribute to the good name of lawyers and the Peoria County Bar Association. And so I know that Harry's upstairs in heaven, and that he's looking down on his family, he's looking down on his grandkids, and he's still watching out for them as he did throughout his life. And so I'm going to ask Tim Cushing to read the resolution for Harry.
Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deepest sympathy and sorrow on the passing of our colleague and friend, Harry M. Williams, as well as our appreciation for his life, his dedication to the law, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial resolution to Georgette Williams, the wife of Harry M. Williams, and his son, Harry Williams Jr., respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022.
Thank you. Jim Hatcher will be remembered by his daughter, Julia.
May it please the court, to the family and friends of James G. Hatcher, members of the judiciary, Peoria County Bar Association, and guests. I want to thank the Peoria County Bar Association and David Miller, chairman of the Memorial Committee, for the privilege and honor of presenting this memorial resolution in honor and recognition of my father, James G. Hatcher. My name is Julia Hatcher, and I am Jim Hatcher's oldest daughter. He also had two other daughters, Maria Atkins and Joanna Kraus, who is here today. He had 3 grandchildren, Corey, Colin, and Jonathan, who is here today. He had one brother, Bill, who's 9 years younger than him, who lives in New Jersey, and 2 nephews, Gene and Jeff. They could not be here today, but I'm sure they're watching. Thank you all for coming today. It would mean a lot to our father that you are all here. He was a humble man and did not want an obituary or a funeral service. And so our family appreciates that he is being honored here. Dad was born on June 18, 1934 in Peoria, Illinois at Methodist Hospital. And he died on January 24, 2022 at OSF Hospital. He led a very full and interesting life. He grew up in Morton, Illinois, where his father was the high school principal and his mother was the librarian. Back then, he was called Jerry. He joked that he often ended up in the principal's office because of his behavior, but I think he just wanted to see his dad. While in high school, Dad played the trombone and earned high school letters in both band and debate. He was also a Life Scout. After graduation from high school, Dad got a full scholarship to Harvard University, where he received his BA in economics. He was elected as the vice president of the Harvard Student Council. He was elected president of Harvard Students for Stevenson, where his love for politics was born. He was the chairman of the Harvard Student Alumni Committee. He was on the board of directors for the UN Council, and he was a member of the Dunster Dunces, which was a choir where he sang tenor or baritone. I'm not sure which one. He told me once that the only reason that he got into Harvard was because he was from a small town, and Harvard wanted to have a diverse class of students, so they picked him. Although that may be partially true, I know that he was also a brilliant man. Although he did tell me a funny story once, where he went on a date with a Radcliffe girl, and she asked him if he liked Wuthering Heights, to which he replied, yes, it was a great poem. She never went out with him again, but he laughed about that. He graduated from Harvard in 1956 and immediately joined the United States Marine Corps. He first attended boot camp in San Diego at Camp Pendleton, and then served as a lieutenant with duty in Japan and the Philippines. Upon his honorable discharge from active duty in 1959, he went on to serve as a captain in the reserves, and in 1970, he was honorably discharged from the reserves. He loved his time in Japan and the Far East, which is evidenced by all of the memorabilia he acquired. After he left the Marine Corps in 1959, he used his GI money to go to law school. He told me that he missed the deadline to apply to Harvard Law, so he went to Columbia Law instead. While he was at Columbia, he was one of 4 in his class of 200 to be chosen to participate for 2 years in the International Fellows Program. The program joined 50 students selected from all of the graduate schools in the university to study the role of the United States in world affairs. Also during law school, he met our mother and the love of his life, Joan Clifford. They met at a dinner and fundraiser for Adlai Stevenson. He told me that their eyes met across a crowded room, and he knew that she was the woman he wanted to marry. After Dad graduated from Columbia Law in 1963, he and our mother, who had married as he had planned, moved to Portland, Oregon, where he served as the chief law clerk for a U.S. district judge. When his clerkship ended, he worked for a private law firm for a while, where one of his clients was the Tillamook Cheese Company. And then when I was 6 months old, he and my mother decided to move back to Morton to be close to his family. He was admitted to the Illinois State Bar on April 14, 1965. Dad first went to work as an assistant state's attorney in Tazewell County. But he wasn't there for too long before he was recruited to be an assistant U.S. attorney in Peoria. He was appointed to the post on November 21st, 1966. He was in charge of the Peoria office for 2.5 years and prosecuted federal, criminal, and civil cases in the 16-county Peoria Rock Island Division. In 1968, at the young age of 33, Dad decided to run for U.S. Congress and thus had to resign his post as the assistant U.S. attorney. Some of my earliest memories are of that campaign. On the campaign trail, he would say, "I will treat the one-man butcher shop in Washington or Metamora the same as the retail chain store in Chicago." That was my dad, always looking out for the underdog. In 1969, while he was working for the Peoria law firm of Mathis, Slavin, and Parsons, Governor Shapiro appointed Dad to be the associate judge of the 10th Judicial Circuit Court of Tazewell County. That didn't last too long, and Dad eventually opened his own general law practice in downtown Peoria, which for years was located in the Lehman Building, where I worked during the summers to help defray the cost of my college tuition. Dad was a Democratic county chairman for Peoria County for decades, it seems. I remember when myself and my sisters block walked with him, registered people to vote, and attended parties and fundraisers. One of my earliest memories was when Dan Walker ran for governor. My father spoke about him nonstop, about how he was walking the entire state of Illinois to campaign. I was about 5 years old when Dan Walker came to our house in Morton. And as he arrived by limousine, when I answered the door, I asked him, "Why aren't you walking?" Dad chuckled at that, and Dan said he was tired. Once Dan Walker was elected governor, he commissioned Dad as a member of the Advisory Council of the National Legal Services Corporation, as well as the Illinois Civil Service Commission. Dad had numerous law partners throughout the years: Jerry Stafford, Dan Walker, Dan Cusack, and Mark Rose, to name a few. I'm sorry I don't remember them all. After the Lehman Building was sold, he and Mark Rose moved their law office to a building across the street from this courthouse, where their names remain to this day. Dad finally retired from the practice of law in March of 2008. After he retired, he did not stop working. He spent his days managing his rental properties and working with his hands. I think he almost liked that more than practicing law. My father always told the story that he brainwashed me until I was 9 years old, constantly telling me that I would become a lawyer, and then never mentioned it again. Apparently it worked. After working for my father all of those years, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. I had to do a few other things first, but I finally joined the club. I graduated from Northern Illinois School of Law in 1997. Everyone who knew Dad talks about how sweet he was and how kind he was. He was hard on his children, but it was only to teach us to be independent and to stand on our own 2 feet. When Dad fell and went to the hospital at the end of November, it never crossed our minds that he wouldn't be going home. We spent Christmas and New Year's with him in a nursing home and thought he was getting better. When he went back to the hospital, I told him that I hated to see him like that. And he replied that it wouldn't last much longer. The night before he died, he pointed in front of him and told me that my mother, who had died in 1984, was standing behind me. I knew then that she was there to take him home, and I told him it was okay to go with her. Thank you again for allowing me to be here and giving me this opportunity. And I'd like to have Tim Howard read the resolution.
Therefore, be it resolved that membership of the Peoria County Bar Association expresses our deep sympathy and sorrow from the passing of our colleague and friend, James G. Hatcher, as well as our appreciation for his life, his dedication to the law, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial resolution to members of his family.
Thank you, Julia and Tim. The memorial for Frederick Johnson will be given by Rick.
Please, the court. To the family and friends of Frederick D. Johnson, members of the judiciary, Peoria County Bar Association, and guests. I am grateful to the Peoria County Bar Association and to David B. Miller, chairman of the Memorial Committee, for the privilege and honor of presenting this memorial resolution in honor and recognition of my uncle, Frederick D. Johnson. Fred was born on June 20, 1927 in Brimfield, Illinois, to his parents, my grandparents, Dean and Florence Johnson. He graduated from Brimfield Grade School and Brimfield High School. In 1945-46, he was in the United States Navy stationed in Hawaii, where he was a secretary to the commander. Upon leaving the Navy, he attended the University of Colorado, where his father, Dean Johnson's sister, Edna Johnson, and Ed to me, taught botany and received his BA degree from that school in 1950. Following graduation from the University of Colorado, Fred attended the University of Michigan Law School and graduated in 1953. He was a loyal Michigan fan. Go Boo! The rest of his life, even though his brother, attorney Arbor Johnson, and numerous other family members were graduates from the University of Illinois Law School, including myself, my 3 sisters, who weren't from the law school, but are graduate school, or graduated from there, Lynn, Marilyn, and Kathy, and my 2 brothers, Jay and Jim, who are here today, who also have law degrees. Following his graduation from law school, Fred was drafted into the Army, where he served at Fort Leonard Wood during the Korean War. Following graduation from law school and his service in the military, Fred joined his brother, my father, Arbor, in practice in the firm of Swain Johnson and Guard, and continued in that firm until he retired in 1994. While at the firm, Fred was able to practice law with his daughter Beth and 3 nephews, Rick, Jay, and Jim. Well, Jim and I are still practicing with the firm. We're not playing golf or vacationing. In 1996, the firm, formed in 1946, changed its name to Johnson, Bunsen Noble. While in law school, Fred married the love of his life,
Billy C. Chase of Elmwood on August 31, 1952 in Brimfield, Illinois. She passed away November 4th, 2021. They have 3 children, Beth, Chase, and Clay. Beth and Clay are also attorneys. That makes 5 of us who are attorneys. As my father said many times, quote, "I just wish that one of you was a plumber." In addition to practicing law, Fred invested in the Peoria area. He and my father were some of the original developers of Pioneer Industrial Park. Fred and my father also purchased controlling interest in the Brimfield Bank in 1942. That was called the Exchange State Bank of Brimfield, through which they served their home Brimfield community until the sale of the bank 54 years later. Fred was president and chairman of the board all of those years. He was an especially avid golfer, was often found playing at Mount Holly Country Club throughout his 60 years of membership, was proud of 2 holes in one there, made only 2 weeks apart, both at age 80. An equally enthusiastic golf spectator, he attended his grandchildren's high school and collegiate tournaments near and far, where their teammates and rivals look forward to his winsome presence. Another highlight of his life was his and his wife's involvement with St. Jude. Having been blessed by his son Clay's successful cancer treatment at St. Jude in Memphis, Fred and Billy became tireless volunteers for the organization. He served on the board for the St. Jude Midwest affiliate and became known for his deeply personal annual letter encouraging donations to the St. Jude Telethon. Together with Billy, he made many appearances on the telethon and was involved in the annual St. Jude Peoria Golf Classic. Fred was also deeply religious and a longtime member of the Grace Presbyterian Church. Fred will be deeply missed by the many whose lives he touched. Personally, I will remember him on holidays when he and his family and Grandma and Grandpa Johnson would come over to our house on Sharon Road in the afternoon to visit us. I also will never forget the time I asked my mother why she called me Rick when my name was Frederick. Her response, quote, "I don't want you to be called Little Fred the rest of your life." He was 6 feet something tall. Be Little Fred. He was more than an uncle and law partner. He was a friend. Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deepest sympathy and sorrow on the passing of our colleague and friend, Frederick D. Johnson, as well as our appreciation for his life, dedication to the law, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial resolution to his daughter Beth and his sons Chase and Clay. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And in fond remembrance of Fred, I'll add a go blue. Chris Cassidy will be remembered by his brother, Tim Cassidy.
Judge Gorman, distinguished members of the judiciary, members of the Peoria County Bar Association, and guests. I too am grateful to the Peoria County Bar Association and to the Memorial Committee chaired by Dave Miller for the privilege and honor of presenting this memorial resolution in honor and recognition of my brother, Christopher F. Cassidy. Chris was born on Christmas Day, 1956, to John Jack Cassidy Jr. and Helen Fagan Cassidy He was the fourth of 9 children. Chris graduated from St. Vincent de Paul Grade School and Bergen High School, both in Peoria. In January 1983, Chris married Nancy Rosenquist in Cambridge, Illinois. Chris and Nancy never had their own children, but they were blessed with 28 nieces and nephews, all of whom Chris treated as if they were his own. Under the steady influence of Nancy, Chris attended Illinois State University and graduated with honors. He then furthered his education at Southern Illinois University School of Law in Carbondale, earning his Juris Doctorate degree, and then practiced law at Care, Cassidy and Miller in Chillicothe, and then Cassidy and Miller in Peoria. After practicing law full-time for several years, Chris's principal occupation, as well as his passion, was at Three Sisters Park in Chillicothe, where he was general manager for decades, growing the park into a first-class facility that enhanced the quality of life for the residents of Chillicothe and all of central Illinois. There are many things I can say about Chris's accomplishments at Three Sisters Park, but the two most visible are the Spider Hill Halloween attractions and the Summer Camp Music Festival. Spider Hill started as a small haunted house attraction during Halloween, and over 2 decades, it has grown into 3 separate main attractions, known as Massacre Mansion, Trail of Terror, and the Zombie Invasion. Because of Chris, the Spider Hill attractions are now a Halloween tradition and a destination for hundreds of families, and they are second to none. The Summer Camp Music Festival is held over Memorial Day weekend each year. Because of Chris's efforts, Three Sisters Park hosts summer camp in partnership with Goldberg Productions, and it is considered one of the top music festivals in the country. I'm going a bit off script. As I was walking over here today, it occurs to me this is Memorial Day weekend, and Chris would be. They call the attendees of Summer Camp Music Festival scampers, which is a combination of 2 words. One is campers, and I'm not sure what the other word would be. But Chris would be spending today, tonight, and the rest of the weekend with scampers. It also occurred to me that some of the distinguished members of our Judiciary Committee may be able to meet some scampers next week in your courtroom. Chris had many interests and hobbies. He was a Chicago Bears season ticket holder. He was a cyclist, a bowler, a fisherman, and he even took up the sport of archery. And I can call archery a sport because it is in the Olympics. Chris was also known to have imbibed from time to time in certain adult beverages while participating in his many hobbies. Chris's commitment and obligations to Three Sisters Park was a full-time job, but he did continue to practice law on a part-time basis at Cassidy and Miller and as general counsel at Three Sisters Park. Chris grew up and lived around lawyers. His grandfather, John Cassidy Sr., was a lawyer and serving as Illinois Attorney General during the Governor Horner administration. His father, Jack Cassidy, was a lawyer. 3 of his brothers are lawyers, and his uncle and cousin, Bill Costigan and Casey Costigan, were or are in the legal profession. And I feel compelled to say Chris also had a brother that was a plumber. He's here today. Chris loved the idea of being a lawyer. He believed being a lawyer is an honorable and noble profession, which it is. Chris had the qualities found in all good lawyers. He was ethical, compassionate, and of high integrity. Chris has survived and will be deeply missed by his wife, Nancy, his mother, Helen, his 8 brothers and sisters, his 28 nieces and nephews, and his dog, Rosie. Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deepest sympathy and sorrow in the passing of a colleague, friend, and brother, Christopher F. Cassidy, as well as our appreciation for his life, his dedication to the legal profession, and his friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association forward a copy of this memorial resolution to Nancy Cassidy, the wife of Christopher F. Cassidy, respectfully submitted this day. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. The memorial for Sandra Sandy Traykoff will be given by Tim Howard.
I knew I was going to be last. May it please the court, Mr. Chairman. To the family and friends of Sandra M. Traykoff, members of the judiciary, members of the Peoria County Bar Association, and guests. I want to first thank the Peoria County Bar Association and to my good friend Dave Miller, chairman of the Memorial Committee, for the privilege of presenting this memorial resolution in honor of and recognition of my former partner and good friend, Sandra M. Traykoff. Sandra, or as she was known by almost everyone with whom she came into contact, Sandy, was an incredibly talented attorney. I must also tell you that Sandy is probably shaking her fist at me from above as a result of this memorial, because she definitely would not want a fuss made over her. However, since she is not here to stop me or to stop this service, I shall continue. Sandy graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of Kansas in 1965. She went on to receive a Master of Science degree from the University of Illinois in 1970 and a law degree from DePaul University in 1978. She followed the love of her life, her husband, Chris Traykoff, to Peoria, where she quickly became a trailblazer in the Peoria legal community in an era when women were not commonly tapped for top executive positions. Initially, Sandy served as a loan review officer specializing in legal and consumer compliance matters with the Commercial National Bank, now known as PNC Bank, from 1978 to 1982. This is where I first met her. I was an associate with the firm that represented the Commercial National Bank. Sandy went on to serve as vice president, secretary, and general counsel for the Midwest Financial Group from 1982 until 1989, when it was sold to First of America Bank Corporation. Sandy then joined the law firm of Howard & Howard Attorneys as one of the original attorneys in the firm's Peoria office. I joined her at the firm in 1990. Sandy continued to practice with Howard & Howard until she retired in 2013. Sandy gave generously of her time and expertise to mentor younger attorneys on both legal and office success skills. Important lessons included the law was to be scrupulously followed. Clients were to be protected from engaging in imprudent transactions, no matter how much they fussed. Attorneys must never forget to bring treats on their treat day. Be nice to cats. And never, ever let the candy jar go empty. Bob Johnston, an attorney in our Bloomfield Hills office, worked with Sandy during her entire career at Howard & Howard, and he offers the following regarding their relationship. Quote, to describe Sandy as erudite is accurate, but misses the mark. She was also very thorough and a skilled taskmaster. Should I slip some BS into my legal analysis, she was quick to pounce on it. She'd call me out and send me back to the drawing board for a better effort. She had an opinion about everything, and she let you know it, somehow without being judgmental. Perhaps it was her husky and slightly mischievous laugh that often accompanied any sharp tone that softened the message, which nevertheless was crystal clear. Bob and Sandy shared a love of movies and a love-hate relationship regarding the annual Academy Award ceremony. As described by Bob, quote, for more than 20 years, one of us would initiate a call to discuss the nominations. Despite, or maybe because of, the two of us never agreed, those conversations were among my favorite times spent with her. While Sandy was adamant that the law was to be scrupulously followed, she did bend the rules with respect to the no smoking indoor rule. Now, Mike Lead and Sandy had offices located in what was affectionately referred to at Howard Howard as the Annex, as a small suite of offices located across the hall from the main part of the office. Mike remembers that he and Sandy shared chocolates, cigarettes, most of which she smoked inside, and grumbling about things. Sandy also had a passion for collecting and trying new recipes. Mike Gifford shares the following story about one such experience with her. Quote, my wife and I went to New Orleans at least once a year. Sandy heard about our annual trips and asked one year, what kind of bottled roux do you use? I politely told her that we did not use bottled store-bought roux, nor does any decent cook in New Orleans. She was not to be deterred and insisted that I ask at the meat shop that we always go to what they recommended. I told her it was a fool's errand and considered just forgetting it. But the day before we left, she reminded me that she wanted us to bring her bottled roux and to ask the meat shop which was the best. We got our meat at an old-fashioned country store that is part grocery, part hardware store, part five and dime, and part butcher shop with an incredible meat section where they cut their own meats and made all their own sausages. It smelled like heaven. I gulped a few times and I asked the question, knowing the level of scorn that I invited, to a matronly black lady nearby. She looked up from her work and with gravelly disdain said, I make my own roux. My story continues, quote, I explained my fool's errand to her and explained that Sandy was about as intimidating as she was. She smiled and came out from behind the counter and took us to the roux section. She said, here, try this, no worse than the others. We brought it home, gave it to Sandy, and she was delighted. We never found out how it worked for her, but she was very happy. When it came for time for Sandy to think about retirement, it quickly became apparent that it was going to be next to impossible to replace her. Sandy had a very specialized set of skills and extensive experience in bank regulatory work. As an aside, very exciting, right? All mergers and acquisitions for financial institutions are subject to regulatory approval, and Sandy handled expertly all regulatory matters for those transactions on behalf of the firm. Those of you who are familiar with the Peoria legal market, and let's be real, the entire Illinois legal market, know that you can count the number of attorneys who have extensive bank regulatory experience on one hand. Over the years, Sandy had tried in vain to train people in the firm to fill her shoes, but to no avail. As anyone who knows Sandy, she could be, quote, gruff, exacting, and demanding, close quote. But Sandy's retirement dreams came true as a result of pure luck and a really good hairdresser. A local hairdresser was talking with a client who had recently been widowed, who had bank regulatory experience, and who was now looking for employment. This hairdresser mentioned it to Mike Fleming. And a short time later, Mike was at a Peoria Bar Association function and happened to sit next to Tracy Lissinger, who was an attorney in our firm at the time. Mike told Tracy about this attorney and said that she had bank regulatory experience. Tracy told Mike not to mention this person to anyone else. Long story short, the firm hired Donna Geltz to take over Sandy's practice. And Sandy was able to retire to her beloved home in the Lake of the Woods subdivision. Attorneys at the firm liked to joke at the time that we were not sure who was more desperate, Sandy and the firm or Donna. Sandy loved watching the wildlife that visited the deck at her home and made sure that all the birds, squirrels, raccoons, and other forest creatures had plenty of treats whenever they visited. There's a rumor that Kelly C. may go out of business now that she's no longer a customer. Sandy was preceded in death by her husband, Chris, and his parents, by her parents, by her sister-in-law, Carol Wilson, Patricia Mosier, and her sister in spirit, Roberta Chaycroft. Sandy is survived by members of Chris's family, who became her family, including James and Denise Chaycroft, Steve Mosier, Mike Wilson, Megan and William Ireland, Christine and Chris Harriman, Brett and Laura Wilson, and Susan Chaycroft and Bill Morton, as well as many other wonderful friends. Sandy cared deeply about the law, her clients, and her colleagues. The path she blazed and the example she set will continue to enrich the careers of the lawyers she touched for many years to come. Finally, Sandy was wicked smart and cantankerous and exceedingly kind. What more could one ask of a card and a friend? Therefore, be it resolved that the membership of the Peoria County Bar Association express our deep sympathy and sorrow on the passing of our colleague and friend Sandra Trakoff, as well as our appreciation for her life, her dedication to the law, and her friendship. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Peoria County Bar Association shall forward a copy of this memorial resolution to Sandra Trakoff Morton, respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That concludes the formal memorials and gives us the opportunity to enjoy what I refer to as the best part of this service, and that is the candid memory that everyone has for those whom we have honored here today. This service serves two equally compelling purposes. Number one is to let the members of the family of those whom we honor know the high regard in which their departed family member was held by those in his profession, because the family really doesn't know or understand what we lawyers do. And the other is to allow those of us in the practice who have shared our experiences with the law, with the persons whom we have honored, to know and understand them and the esteem in which and the affection in which they're held by their family members. At this part of the memorial, we open the floor to anyone who is here, family members, to talk about their departed family member, those of us in the profession, the judges and lawyers to comment, add stories, anecdotes, remembrances of the persons whom we honor. So with that in mind, I will open the floor, and I see Tim Swain, another youngster, willing to volunteer. Tim?
Thank you very much, Dave. Including the court, judiciary, members of the Peoria County Bar Association, family and guests. This deals with Frederick E. Johnson. It was my honor and privilege to be both an associate and partner of Fred Johnson at Swain Johnson and Guard, first at the Central Building, and later starting in 1968 when our office moved to the new State Center Tower. Fred was a brother of Arbor Johnson, and their uncle Frederick Arbor founded the original law firm of Arbor, Swain, Johnson. Fred was a big guy, maybe 6'3" and maybe 230 pounds, who had served in the Navy at the close of World War II and was then called back to serve in the Army at the start of the Korean War. As a graduate of the University of Michigan Law School, he was blessed with a steel-trap legal mind and giving him analytical abilities that allowed him to practice law with ease and pleasure, primarily in the fields of real estate and banking. A man of integrity who would fight for his client and who always did the right thing. In closing, I want to relate a true incident that happened demonstrating Fred's many virtues that also involved his wife, Billy. A young man was a friend of the Johnson family who had earlier lost his father prematurely, being left with only his mother. In an automobile accident in Illinois, the friend's mother was killed. Fearing that her new orphan son, who was in Indiana, would learn of the death of his sole surviving parent by a cold newspaper article, Fred and Billy departed Peoria in their car at 1 or 2 in the morning so that they could reach the young man to inform him of his mother's tragic death before the public media did, and they accomplished their goal. Fred will always be remembered for his honor, integrity, and legal abilities. Respectfully submitted, Tim PW 27. Thank you very much.
Tim, thank you very much. Anyone, before I get started, have some comments? Yes, Brian.
First of all, even though I've never met Jim Hatcher's daughter, I would like to say that particularly the closing comments that she made were among the more touching tributes I've ever heard, and I've been coming to these things for many years. Very well done. My other comment is about TJ. All the adjectives that can describe TJ, spell was not one. There's a reason why he was good at football. But he also was a very accomplished golfer, and he would be down on our Gulf Shores trip from time to time. He was my partner in a round one day, and it was well fought going into the 18th hole, which was fairly long par 5, but had uphill maybe 30 degrees. And we were riding our cart together, 100 yards out, with the match on the line. The cart broke, stopped running. That's what TJ and his unique sense of humor, I guess sense of humor, looked at me and says, "You push, I'll steer." It was a wonderful man.
And you pushed it, that he steered?
I chose walking. I don't remember what he did.
John.
I'll speak if I may. Two people I knew very well.
Please.
First, Gary Williams, his family's here. Gary Williams is a peer of mine. All my cases were against him, but Harry was known as both a gentleman, professional, but he was also a very good advocate. He was a tiger out there. I tried cases against him, but always a gentleman. And I also here want to speak about a very good friend, but in a different sense, a mentor, and that's TJ, Tom Johnson. We, of course, all know him as TJ. I say this, us lawyers know, but I say this mainly for his family, and I see his daughter here and the grandkids. TJ was a wonderful mentor. What TJ realized is this is a people profession. He put people first. He realized that when you work with them as people, you would realize their strengths and weaknesses, and it made him a better lawyer. And he gave me, as a young lawyer, back in the 1980s, just turned 63 a couple days ago, but Herb remembers me as a young lawyer, and so did TJ. They gave me an opportunity as a young lawyer, gave me some of their skills, and I carried them on. And I want the family to know he gave to this profession. Thank you.
John, you're still a kid. I met TJ when we were both starting practice in the fall and winter of 1966. And at that time, and they may still do it, in guardianship proceedings, they needed guardians ad litem, and these were agency adoptions. And then the Judge Ivan would handle the adoptions, and you would have a list, and the young associate lawyers would be invited over because you would get $25 for being the GAL, and that was money you didn't have to give back to the firm. And $25, I hate to put it this way, but it was sufficiently significant that you stayed on the list. And so I was over for an adoption, and the stock questions are those that are handed down from generation to generation because you don't know what questions to ask unless somebody gives you the list. And so TJ and I met. I was sitting there and I had the list. And so I went in, and when I came back out, having earned my $25, I gave the list to TJ, for which he was eternally grateful. It's interesting to see your contemporaries, and I have been doing these memorials now. I think this may be my 12th year, and I'm seeing my contemporaries pass from the scene. The first four lawyers whom we remember here today, Frank Renner, Gary Clark, TJ, and Ray Rose are all lawyers with whom I took cases to verdict. And it was interesting hearing the memorial and the Brock Renner, which are you here? I thought I could recognize you. The case that you said your dad was proudest of, was the ADM case. His client was Jerry Dion Owens, and I had Archer Daniels Midland Company in that case, and we tried it in Champaign in federal court before Judge McCuskey here, and that I guess would be about 20 years ago. So that brought back a lot of memories. I remember when your dad came to town, he really came with party. He and Prescott Bloom, Keb Bloom, they came as Parky's associates when the Parky, and this is John Parkhurst, they had the assignment of prosecuting polluters in the state of Illinois, and particularly in this area. And so Parky came in, and he had his two sidekicks with him, and they were set to prosecute Peoria's leading polluter, a fellow who ran a dump off of Farmington Road by the name of Porky Jansen. And Porky Jansen was notorious for dumping into Kickapoo Creek. And they had a school up on the bluff, as I recall, and you could look down and see the garbage going into Kickapoo Creek. Well, at that time, I was just an innocent associate, and I see this commotion from the Lehman Building going on here, and there were all kinds of protesters. It was the independent garbage haulers, and they were protesting the prosecution of Porky Jansen. And why? Because garbage in the Peoria was handled, I think at that time, by Peoria Disposal Company, and they had a big operation, and they did all of the disposal. And Porky Jansen's dump was the only place the independent garbage haulers could haul their garbage. And so they were going to be run out of business if the court shut Porky Jansen down. And the judge in that case, many of you will remember, was Albert Pucci, who was an irascible little Italian. And I came over to the courthouse innocently. And in those days, you used to be able to walk up and down the hallway and see judges in their chambers. So I came over to have an uncontested order entered, and I fight my way through all of these protesting garbage haulers and get into the chambers. And I think it was in this courtroom that the independent garbage haulers and Porky Jansen and Parky and your father and Peb Bloom were having a real Donnybrook. And Porky Jansen was unrepresented, and a garbage hauler by the name of George Lovecamp was trying to present his case. And Judge Pucci jumped up from the bench just as I happened to be going by, and he grabbed me by the coat, and he said, "Do you believe that everybody is entitled to have a lawyer?" And you can predict what's about to happen. 5 minutes later, I'm there in the courtroom with my eyes like Orphan Annie's being introduced to Porky Jansen. And there's a lot more to that story, but that was the first time I had anything to do with your dad, and I was not particularly impressed by polluters. not then or now, but heeding Judge Pucci's admonition, everybody's entitled to have a lawyer. I tried cases with Gary Clark for many, many years. And he was a fine, fine lawyer with Fred Allen, with whom I also tried cases. TJ and I had a number of cases, usually on the same side. But we had one notorious case where I teamed up with Jay Jansen on a subrogation case representing the workers' compensation carrier for a particularly unique plaintiff. And we ended up getting shoulder to shoulder. We got a very nice verdict that went on to the appellate court and then went on and is reported before the Illinois Supreme Court. And Ray Rose and I were born in the same year. I started practice a little bit ahead of Ray, but we had many, many cases together and tried a medical malpractice case here for 2.5 weeks to a hung jury. So I remember all of these lawyers and I remember them very, very fondly. And I hope that opens up some suggestions to others who want to share their experience with the Harry Williams, Jim Hatcher, Fred Johnson, Frank Renner, Gary Clark, Ray Rose, or the like, because this is the opportunity to share those experiences. John.
I was lucky enough to know virtually everybody that you remember here today. The one I probably do best is Frank Renner. And I didn't have much to do with Frank while he was still a practicing attorney. I had a few things with him, but nothing of any significance. I got to know Frank much better after he retired, and he became a member of this group of golfers, primarily lawyers, but a couple of normal people as well, who would get together every Wednesday after work and play 9 holes, usually at Newman, and then repair to a bar, usually Cruises. And Frank, as you know, a great athlete, great lawyer, first or golfer, I should say, great lawyer too, but first great golfer. And he and I both played golf left-handed. So, thanks to the fact that he actually knew how to play the game, was more than happy to try and help me out as much as he possibly could. He did help cure my slice. So every time I find my drive in the fairway of the hole that I'm currently playing, I am thankful that I got to know Frank at least on the golf course. But the best part about Frank to me was that he was a very bright guy, very interested in all kinds of different things. And I just love to have conversations with him about subjects far and wide, politics, current events, sports, certainly, anything involving the human condition, investments. He and I were both big fans of real estate investment trusts, and conversations with Frank were always something to be treasured, and it was certainly time well spent for me. And him being gone, frankly, it's not as much fun for me because of his passing. Gary Clark, the definition of a gentleman and a nice guy. By the time I came to town and I started doing insurance defense work, Gary was, of course, a very established attorney. I was just a dumb rookie, and he could not have been nicer to me. He was always extremely well prepared, very thoughtful, and I always looked up to him as the gold standard of what a lawyer ought to be. And I was privileged to get to know him, some on the skid committee, and as well as crossing the swords with him in the courtroom. He's a great guy. His wife, by the way, taught 3rd grade to both of my kids. So, Elaine, thank you for doing a great job. TJ, to know him is to like him. A great sense of humor, thick laugh, quick to make jokes, even self-deprecating humor. He did not really take himself too seriously, but if you were on the other side of the case with TJ and you didn't take him seriously, you paid for him. The law firm that bears his name, I think, is a great great tribute to him and the firm that he and Dick Quinn built. You know, I mean, who would not want to practice law with those two guys? Especially Fridays around 3:30 in the afternoon. Harry Williams, I also had a number of cases against Harry, and these we would look at perhaps as small cases frequently, but not to Harry. He cared about his clients, and even a case that we would think to be a quote small case, Harry recognized that as far as the client was concerned, this was the biggest case in the world, and Harry treated it like that, and he always gave his clients the best shot at getting the best result that he could. And I always respected Harry. He was a pleasure to deal with. His word was as good as gold. And he died way, way too young. So it was, our bar association has been very fortunate that we've had these class individuals to be part of the legal community of this this area, and we are less than inclined to law school.
We are indeed blessed by the camaraderie of those of us who have had the privilege of practicing in this bar association, particularly those of us, and I can only speak from experience, with those of us who spend our time in the court. Other than socially, I have never really met a lawyer in this association that I wouldn't enjoy sharing a pint with or playing a round of golf with. Your remembrance of Harry reminds me, I would say, of Harry if he set his mind to something, he would not be dissuaded. He had to get a ruling against him, or he was going to believe that whatever he believed to start with, it was the truth. So it did no good to argue with him or to try to convince him that he was wrong. So the easiest way to handle the situation is simply to say, yes, but I disagree. Yes.
If I may, I was Jim Matthews' grandson, and I really didn't know my grandpa as a lawyer. He quit the practice long before I got to know him, and he didn't really talk much about his practice, even though I knew he liked it. He was always a quiet man, and the one thing I knew is that he loved steak and shake. There's only one left, I think, or two, but I know that we would go on Sundays whenever I was in town, go to Steak and Shake. And I just want to say thank you to everyone here. He was, as far as I know, a quiet man in general, very strong-willed, but quiet. And I take akin to some of that a little bit, but just like to say thank you to everybody here who had the honor of serving against him for him. And just, it means a lot to me here, everybody just remembering him. So thank you.
I'm sure he would appreciate your remarks very much, as would all of those whom we honor here today. Are there any other thoughts or yes, Judge Eagleton?
Please, the clerk. There are very few advantages of being the oldest member of the bar, or at least close to the oldest. I remember when almost everyone started practicing except for Fred Johnson. I don't want to get started on a lot of stories because time is of the essence. But there is one I must single out, and that's Jim Hatcher. When I was a young, brand new U.S. attorney in 1965, I came into office and Peoria was a one-lawyer office at the time. Springfield was a three-assistant office at the time, and they were all vacant. Well, along came this young lawyer from Morton that had started practice in Tazewell County, and I found out he went to Harvard. I went to Yale. What do I want to hire him for? But I was desperate. Great candidate. Despite his Harvard background, he had a good background. And I really wish that he had been elected to Congress in 1968 because from day one, you could tell he was going to be, if given an opportunity, a great public servant. And during the years that he was with me before he ran for Congress, I can attest to the fact that he was. I could go on and on about various things that Jim and I had together, but there's one that stands out. It kind of shows how his feelings were as a prosecutor. I got a phone call down in Springfield, which was my main office, from Jim saying that he was really concerned about something that happened. And to make a long story short, a defendant showed up without his lawyer, went into Judge Morgan's chambers. He denied him a continuance and started telling him how to try a case. Well, how you get started picking a jury in one thing or another. And Jim Hatcher was there, but I was not. And so I get this story from Jim over the phone. We're walking out of the judge's chambers, and the poor devil said, "What can I do? I don't know how to even get started." And Jim said, "Well, you plead guilty or not guilty. If you plead guilty, the standard for interstate auto theft case is 3 years." He says, "Well, that's all I can do then, apparently." So Jim called me and he really felt terrible about this. He said, "I got a feeling in my stomach that isn't right." I said, "Jim, that's called reversible error." And it was. But not anything Jim did. Jim was trying to help this fellow out. And but that was one of the many events with Jim that I remember. And we had a good several years association.
Hearing you tell that story and it being Judge Morgan, one thing that could be said about Robert Dale Morgan is that he meted out justice as he saw it. And you would learn very, very quickly what he was going to rule and how he felt about something. And I can appreciate why there might have been reversible error there. Anyone else have comments, things you would like
Maybe I
to?
should say the conclusion of that story is that, of course, this defendant got out of jail for a while and he committed another. Jim was already for Congress and I'm covering for the one vacant lawyer in Peoria, which was nice because I lived in Peoria. But in any event, he got, instead of 3 years, he got 5 years for the same case. And then I went to work for the American Bar and I did less time. And an appellate defender that was handling this case, and I got talking about it. And I said, well, are you going to raise the issue that we gave him 5 years after he got 3 years reversed? He says, oh no, there was no reversible error in that. So it ended up that the defendant got his reward.
There will be a reception across the street in the Jansen Building in the Renaissance Room for all of the friends and the family of those whom we remembered, together with the members of the bench and the bar. And speaking of the bar, it will be open. In conclusion, I'm sure that the families of those whom we honor are gratified by the appreciation which we show to our departed comrades in the practice of law and the administration of justice. In accordance with the traditions of this event, I conclude with the balance of John Donne's poem, "No Man is an Island." Each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore, send a not to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. On behalf of those whom we have honored, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. Court is adjourned.
Good job. Thanks for seeing you. Good to see you.